custard spirit that season home. The custard spring vibration. Vibration lover. A pounding thunder.
What's up? This is Elia Einhorn. Welcome to the Talkhouse Podcast. Today I am joined by a man who just walked off stage in Amsterdam via the magic of the internet. Tyler Pope of LCD Soundsystem. Welcome to the program, man.
Hey, Elia.
How'd the show go tonight?
The show tonight, it was amazing, actually. And it was. I'm not just saying that. It was insane. It's weird. Certain songs were like really pushed really hard as singles, and so all of a sudden we'll be like playing, and like songs that get like a kind of a normal reaction in other cities got like a really strong reaction in Amsterdam. It was just like sort of weird. It was unexpected.
I love it, man. I've got to ask you, how does it feel to have a fucking #1 record?
Man, it's kind of surreal. I kind of can't even, I don't even know what to say. It's like super, like, is this happening? You know? Not to like make a pun on the last LCD record, but kind of to make a pun on the last LCD record.
We had high expectations for American Dream. We did not think it was going to #1.
Yeah, I know, man. It's crazy. Well, I mean, it's a kind of a weird time, of course, too, for all that. You know, I mean, not to dampen the whole experience of it, but, you know, it's like a weird thing to get #1. I know it's partly physical sales and stuff, but I mean, it's not like back when like the Beatles were #1 for, you know, like it was like...
You're saying you haven't reupholstered the second Merc yet?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's cool anyway, and it's good to say it anyway. It's definitely good for the resume.
There you go. Well, today's Talkhouse episode is sort of an interesting part 2, or maybe we can call the other part a prequel to, as our listeners know, I also host Pitchfork Radio, and I do a lot of over-unders for Pitchfork. Now, I was doing one with Thurston Moore, and I texted you. I know you're a big Sonic Youth fan, and we had this talk set up.
Yeah.
And I said, what should I ask Thurston? Tell the listeners what you told me to ask him.
So my suggestion to you for that was to ask Thurston about what his thoughts on techno music were.
Techno, and
which has always
his
been a big
answer
question
set
for
the
me.
internet alight.
Yeah. I guess I wasn't alone in having that inquisitive feeling about Thurston's take on that.
It was great. The episode was everywhere, and then later that day, we sat down to record this conversation between you and Thurston, and this is sort of such a more in-depth plunge into his relationship with techno and electronic music.
Right, yeah, exactly. I've been like chomping at the bit. Like actually, like I think when you mentioned doing that, the thought popped in my mind, like finally I get to ask Thurston what his thoughts are about electronic music, you know? Because I loved Sonic Youth definitely before I loved electronic music.
I remember you telling me they were one of the formative bands for you.
Very much, yeah. Very, very much formative band for me. Like wanting to move to New York even, which eventually ended up in me being an LCD. You know, just like establishing New York as this kind of like mecca, you know what I mean? Like for so many people, like, yeah, it was like that for me too, for sure.
But then it's so funny, like so many in the sort of LCD and DFA records family, you also are super into electronic music. You have your own record label now, Interference Pattern Records, that exclusively has been putting out electronic, sort of techno-esque music.
Well, not exactly. The Drug Apartments thing isn't exactly.
That's true. That was some great Sacramento punk. I'm thinking of the records you did with Time Cow, and who's for our listeners one half of Equinox, the production duo from Jamaica.
No, totally. And I mean, mostly the label has been electronic so far, and will be mostly electronic music. It's like I've totally gone into that side of it, you know, of like after, I don't know, I heard Daft Punk or something. It was like the first like real love of electronic music, and then I really started to just kind of like go full on into that, you know. But yeah, now I'm like to the point of just like my label is like it's almost just like an electronic music label, I guess, in a way. But I also want to, you know, keep some punk elements in there. Like, I mean, I still have this like love of that, like where I came from, like this kind of like arty hardcore music and stuff, which is like where like, like Sonic Youth and stuff like that. And so I'm putting another Drug Apartments EP out soon.
I got to hear some of it. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, totally. So Yeah, I definitely think it's good to like not totally lose like where you come from with that stuff.
And Thurston evidently agrees with you because he is got this techno record that he told you and I about. And listeners, you're about to hear this great conversation. Again, this is Tyler Pope from LCD Soundsystem and Interference Pattern Records in conversation with Thurston Moore of Sonic Youth. Thurston also just put out a fantastic record called Rock and Roll Consciousness. That's with his band returning Debbie from My Bloody Valentine, and of course Steve
Awesome
Shelley,
record.
who you know from Sonic
Yeah.
Youth.
That record is really, I mean, like, he's put out a lot of records, and Sonic Youth's put out a lot of records. But like before doing this interview, I was like, okay, I'll listen to it. And I was really pretty blown away. Actually, I really liked it a lot. Actually,
Very beautiful, and it definitely takes some of the same sort of themes he's been working towards sonically, but it's a different sound.
it does. It just tweaks them just enough, and it's an amazing thing to me how he can just kind of tweak that paradigm that he's created to just like make it interesting again.
Tyler, thank you so much for joining us here on the Talkhouse.
Yeah, no problem.
And listeners, Thurston asked Tyler about what techno to listen to, so he actually made us a list. You can check that out over at talkhouse.com right now. Should we roll the tape?
Yeah, thanks guys. Hello?
Hey, Tyler, it's Thurston.
Hey, Thurston, how's it going?
Oh, it's going okay. What's
Cool.
happening?
Cool. Yeah, nothing much, man. Just hanging out here in Berlin.
Berlin.
Yeah, I live in Berlin.
How's the weather?
The weather it's like couldn't have been more perfect day, to be honest.
Just like here.
Yeah?
It's cold, gray, and rainy.
Oh, shit. Right on.
Are you at your crib?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've got a studio, kind of a crib. So it's kind of more my studio than my crib, I guess. But it's downstairs from my crib, my house, my apartment.
Where are you in Berlin?
In Kreuzberg.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, totally. Like in
That's
the
so
heart.
good.
By Kottbusser Tor. It is, man. It really is.
Yeah,
I'm
it
glad
really
to
is.
hear you say that. Yeah, I mean, of course, you've probably seen it change.
I would
through the years and
relocate.
everything.
I would relocate to Berlin in a New York minute. When I go there, it's just like, why don't I live here? Are you working on a new record?
Me, yeah, I am actually. I'm here working on my
As
own
rumor has
stuff.
it.
Oh, and yeah, there's a new LCD record coming out.
That's good. We need some good positive records this year. That's for sure. So
Yeah, no, totally, man. I think that James, like lyrically and stuff, like it's really on the ball with things that kind of need to be said these days, and musically too. It's pretty like it's like, yeah, it's pretty anthemic, which is cool. I think.
Oh, great.
Kind of maybe that kind of goes along with like these times and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, bring people together. But yeah, how about you? Are you on tour right now, or soon?
I'm just beginning. I have this album called Rock and Roll Consciousness.
Yeah, I listened
and,
to it a couple of times actually. I'm like a massive fan. Like you were like this is like actually kind of surreal to be even talking to you on the phone. But,
cool. Oh, thank you.
No, of course, man. I mean, it was like it's pretty big. I mean,
Oh, that's awesome.
oh my God, yeah. Like gush for a sec, yeah. Like I don't
That's
know, man.
awesome.
I can't even tell you like how formative it was, like listening to Sonic Youth, and I heard first Sonic Youth on Pump Up the Volume soundtrack, I guess. It was like
On what soundtrack?
I think it was Pump Up the Volume.
Pump Up the Volume. Yeah. We
with
had
Christian
a track
Slater.
on that.
Yeah.
Pump Up the Volume.
Yeah. Yeah. It's totally like there's a lot, like one of those times, you have those like formative times in music of just like your head getting fucking split open because you're just like, what am I hearing right now? But I like it. It's like,
Yeah.
it's melodic as hell, but it's like because you guys use the weird tunings that
Right.
are so it just hits you in a weird place, And so, anyways, yeah, like
Where were you before that? What's your entry point into like getting into like just adventurous music?
adventurous music. I mean, definitely. Well, yeah. So I could say that.
I mean,
guys,
LCD Soundsystem and in your own work is like it's 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 adventurous music. What can I tell you?
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. It's a weird thing because I'm always looking for that,
People ask me about like why do you call your record Rock and Roll Consciousness? I said, well, it's not just about rock and roll. It's just about rock and roll as being all encompassing of what you love about music, which is like this real, it's spirit music. And
Right,
when you go to Japan, you go to the used record stores, you have that divider bin that says spirit music, and I remember seeing that. I was like, that's such a cool title for like a genre of music that maybe nobody ever talks about.
Right.
It's like there's hip hop, there's R&B, there's indie, there's alternative, there's metal, there's all this kind of stuff. It's just like and here's like spirit music, and I was like, oh, what is this? And it's basically it's just it was like looking at music that was all about uplifting aesthetic of mostly like 60s jazz music, like modal jazz, and Alice Coltrane, John Coltrane, and Charlie, Eric Dolphy, Charlie Mingus, and I was like, oh, spirit music, spirit music, and then gospel comes into it, and I was like, well, that's where it all starts anyway. It's like rock and roll sort of comes from like the spirit music of the people, in like early USA, just trying to like rise above, and stay together and communicate. And it's just like it comes out of the churches. It just comes out of like devotional hollers, and so it's just like that to me is like that's what I think the tradition is. And I, when I hear like what the kind of music you guys do, I really see that relationship between like being really like trusting of that as your lineage, but being really artful with it, like being academic with it. Like I like the idea of being an art rock band, whereas I think when I was younger, I was always like, I wish we had the purity of being like a hardcore band,
Yeah.
Because it's like, but we were an art rock band and we were kind of devalued, like, oh, artsy bands rule, But now in retrospect, and now I just like, no, I have this really like, I like the idea of like having that kind of, feeling of what the spiritual is, but also being really academic, and like writing these kind of artful, like compositions that sort of that kind of it's a bit of a balance, because I guess spirit music, spirituality is all about freedom. So this idea of free jazz or like free noise, and and I hear that in your guys' music too. There's like this kind of liberated sound. But at the same time, it's being, you have these kind of mechanisms of really manipulated beats and controlled kind of sequences,
Right. I guess I'm kind of drawn to it. Because, you want to kind of try to evoke something outside of, like tuning into something that's deeper or kind of weird. Like, I don't know what's up with this, but I like it, kind of feeling. That kind of makes you...
Yeah, mystery.
The mystery of it, yeah. Yeah, I always really appreciate that. And it is a weird question. I don't know why I was drawn to that, why I chose that path, but for whatever reasons.
Yeah, I used to get asked that question. It's like, why are you, especially like in when you're younger and you're in high school and everybody's sort of listening to like what everybody is listening to, which is like the generic down the middle kind of like music that's sort of coming out of the radio or whatever, which is like, that all has value, but it's just like, well, then why are you sort of like gravitating towards the margins? Like, why does the subversive resonate with you? It's like, why are you listening to the Stooges? Why are you listening to the MC5? Why are you listening to like Funkadelic? And why, these things that are just sort of like kind of otherworldly and more far out, like Captain Beefheart, like, and then when punk rock happens, it's a celebration of that. It's just like that it just defines itself by like embracing the weird, and and I ran towards that, and I was just like, and it wasn't like I was some disturbed kid coming from some damaged family life, like I need to be defined by weirdness,
exactly.
It was just like, I just thought it was like, this is like, it's more mysterious and intriguing and curious, and just like, I'd much rather be in a band that is like, referencing, suicide or The Wire, or something, or the slits, or the raincoats, and as opposed to the Marshall Tucker Band, or
yeah, definitely.
whatever, the Outlaws, or whatever other big time cool sounds were happening in the 70s.
Yeah, whatever that attraction is, I was like all about that, from the beginning. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It was even like Frank Zappa, I guess like Frank Zappa and stuff.
Yeah,
like
totally.
I got into Frank Zappa. That was maybe, I don't know, that was one of the earlier ones. But,
well, how old are
anyways,
you?
I'm 40. I'm about to turn 40, so.
Yeah, so I'm like almost 2 decades older than you, so.
Oh, dang, okay, yeah.
I'm 58. I'll be 59.
Oh,
I'll be
you're
59
58,
this
wow,
year.
okay.
Yeah. But
right on. No, man, it's
yeah,
cool.
I'm always interested in what people's entry points are, like when usually it's like when you're around 14, 15, 16, and you just start sort of like seeing things that like, oh, wait, that's kind of what I want to do. That's what I like, despite what everybody else is doing,
Yeah.
What leads you there?
Yeah, I definitely like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess you guys like Sonic Youth was probably a pretty big one for me. So whatever.
Yeah, because people start hearing about us in the mid 80s. I mean, we started around 80, but it wasn't like, we didn't come out of the box like, exploding with appreciation from the critical world.
There was probably some years where people were probably pretty confused by what you guys were trying to do.
To put it lightly.
I can only imagine. That's so cool. I mean, to me, it's like, it's a good thing, It's like you're still doing it. And I don't know, yeah, listening to your new record and being like, you like honing the sound that you've been doing, but like reimagining it, like you can still like kind of do different things with this kind of like paradigm that that you created and stuff, which is cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I think everybody has people who do this everybody has their own personal language, and then you have all these shared references. And I kind of want to hear a record by somebody with the language that I appreciate from them. So it's like, or even if it's a genre of music, like, all reggae sounds the same. It's like, yeah, that's why I like it. I mean, it's just like this kind of shared community of intention, It's like, this is how we play. Like when all the hardcore bands had the same idea. It's like you play fast, and then you play the skank part slow, and you play fast again, and then you're out of there, within a minute. And I was just like, I like that. I was like, where'd you guys learn that? It's like, and, all these teenage, suburban white kids, they learned it from the Bad Brains, this kind of, this really like wild, disparate African-American experience band, It's like, that's where they learned it from. I was like, that is really cool. The Bad Brains are the teachers, it's like this, I love that.
Yeah, exactly. It just kind of really worked, I guess, and it resonated. And so it just kind of, became that language, I guess. Yeah, it just became like what everybody did because it worked so well with the Bad Brains. That is really cool that Bad Brains inspired that from all these like this weird like Rasta thing or whatever, and then it was like,
Oh yeah,
totally. That's so cool. Of course, that's the best.
Did you do you go to record stores in Berlin?
Yeah, I'm a pretty big record dude.
There's good secondhand record stores there, and every time I go there, it's like I try to carve out like an hour to get to one, but it usually doesn't play out that way.
Yeah. I buy less, of course, records these days. I don't own a house or an apartment, so I have to move apartments. If you have a record collection. Yeah, it's a really tough. It really makes you rethink. Especially, if it was in the '90s, that would not be even an issue. But like these days, you start balancing. You're like, oh, dude, like. If I owned a house, to be honest, I would probably buy more records.
Yeah, of course. No, it's an albatross. It's just like,
dude, I have 3 record collections. I have one here, I have one in New York, and I have one in California. So
that's what we want to hear.
Relatively big. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. I buy a lot of house and techno records, it's even a bigger deal here, of course. It's like the house.
We were talking about techno earlier.
Oh, really? Did you guys do that on the Over and Under?
they were asking me
Yeah.
about techno, and so I went really deep on like super techno disparagement, and then I flipped it, and then I went into like a complete like, all the accolades I could think about techno, how amazing, and I was sort of talking about my lost techno record.
What? Whoa! Wow.
That's
where
that's
is
in the
that
back.
hiding?
It's there, man. Well, Sonic
man.
Youth did this record called the Whitey album, which is that was kind of like,
This is Sony Youth.
when
record,
techno
right?
first started happening as like a genre, and like people were putting out like all those early like 12 inches. I used to go to Liquid Sky in New York, that record store. That kind of hipster clothing record store, and that's where you would get the first sort of the ambient kind of stuff, and you started getting like the techno records from like Cologne, like on the Music label, and those kind of things. And I was really into that. I still have like a couple of white boxes of just techno sides from that first gen, like techno explosion. But then it became impossible because it's like 6 million records came out in the next 10 years. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I've been looking for techno, for the last 15 or 20 years, and I can still go into shops and like not know anything.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's kind of awesome in a way because
it's kind of like black metal in a way. You go into like a place that has, or if you go online and you just sort of look at like black metal album titles, and it's like there's just like thousands of them, and it's just like, and they all have the same kind of names, like from like Gorgoroth to like blistering, nun. Or,
my God, yeah.
It's like from all over the world. I was like, whoever's collecting this stuff is like insane, first of all.
Right.
And second of all, I was like, how do you just really discern like what is what? And with techno, it's just like,
I had no idea
so many
that
names.
black
It's like,
metal
well,
had
what,
the same.
you kind of like, it has this kind of glitch vibe, or it has this vibe.
Yeah, some people are really like totally, tuned into that, like those nuances and stuff too. I'm like, people are so like, well, that's too glitchy, or that's too like 90, I don't even know who, God knows, like whatever sort of things people criticize about. I don't know. But yeah, totally. It's like, everybody gets really.
What I like about contemporary techno is how it has become this musical attraction for musicians who spend a lot of time in like noise underground.
Yeah, totally.
That, people like Dominic Furnau, who was doing stuff under the name Prurient. And then he started playing with Cold Cave.
Oh,
He had a bit of a goth techno vibe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like kind of whatever EBM sort of.
And then he started doing his own records that sort of like were about his fetishizing certain aspects of techno into his sound. And there's a couple other musicians like that. Yeah, there's a couple other musicians like that. And that's curious to me, like how people move into like their fascination with techno and what they bring to it.
Totally. I guess that's actually, it's funny. I don't know if Elia told it, but I actually suggested that he ask you about techno on the over and under. He texted me. He's like, "What should I ask?" And I said techno because of that phenomenon.
Well, you can have extreme reaction to it. And to me, it's just like, because, people are just like, nah, techno, forget. And then there's people who just like really like, like yourself, it's like, no, techno is just like, it's this super interesting like genre of music that's just like, it goes really deep. And it's like, and all these different aspects of it. So I started out saying like, okay, it's the worst thing in the world, and then I flipped it to it's kind of the greatest thing in the world,
Awesome.
And then I sort of threw out the fact that I have this lost techno record that.
Oh my God! So how? Yeah, I don't know how.
Dude, it's crazy. I should.
Because I was wondering.
I've never played it for anybody.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah, because
man.
Nobody wants to hear me do a techno record. I mean,
oh,
maybe
dude, that's so not true anymore. That's so not true. There's like a whole generation of people who are like, total Sonic Youth heads that are like that same like noise, generation that are doing like kind of more techno, stuff now. Like myself. I mean, like myself, totally.
Yeah. When techno first started happening in a real way in the 90s, I wanted to re-release a couple of jams off of the Chicona Youth record, and I wanted to get some techno remixes done on them.
Man, I gotta like go back to that record. Anyways, okay, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but nobody was into it. They was like, nah, I want to do that. And I sort of wish I had done it at the time.
Oh, dude, yeah, because I remember kind of being a little more wax tracksy.
I mean, we were when we did that record, it was all about going into the studio and not having any like preliminary songs. It wasn't about songs. It was about creating like pieces of music and just raw sampling like things from like LL Cool J records or something. It's like taking beats from, and I was so super into like New York hip hop records. Like 12-inch culture from like from the first
wave of stuff.
Totally. Especially those first the first Def Jam sides before they even like
it's so good still, yeah.
And so I was like constantly going to Sounds on St. Mark's Place and like getting all the 12 inches that were coming out, from the whole diaspora of New York, from South Bronx, Queens and everything. And just really getting into like DST and all these different productions of these hip hop records. And I was always into like the stripped down, versions that would be on the B-sides where
Me
it was
too,
just
dude.
like,
oh my God, yeah.
And that's where and just like it was really fetish on certain aspects of the beats and stuff. And so I would
still
take
really
those,
good to listen to.
and that's sort of in a way what inspired that Chicona Youth record, amongst other things. But so there's some jams on there that were all about that. I was at the mercy of being in a democracy, so it was just like I couldn't really, make it exactly how I would have made it. But I eventually would do that with my solo techno record that nobody's ever heard.
Oh man, yeah.
So
now you never know. Like next thing you know, you're gonna get like an email like.
Well, it'll be pseudonymous.
Diagonal
it's not going to be under my name. It's not going to be under my name because I don't want anybody to come to it with any sort of preconceived idea of just
totally. Yeah,
like this insufferable idiot just made a techno record for
exactly.
Yeah,
fucking sell out. Trying to get a piece of the Ibiza cake.
Yeah.
No.
Oh yeah, totally. Dude, I'm gonna dig that file up. I am.
Yeah.
I'm totally gonna dig that
Dude,
file
you gotta
up.
please.
Nobody's ever heard this.
But don't let the world.
Record. I might have to. I need some constructive criticism.
Okay, cool. This is shit, man. Fuck. No, I'm kidding. I won't do that. Cool. Like this is kind of just a really basic thing about being in a band, but you just mentioned it, like the compromising. Like now that you're working on your solo stuff, and how are you feeling about that versus like the making Sonic Youth records, like in the end, like the compromise thing?
Yeah. In Sonic Youth, it was all about this forum for people to work in a unified way,
right? Without
anybody taking any undue credit for any aspect of it. Like, I'm not taking credit for the lyricism of C. Shelley's drumming, and he's not taking credit for the words I'm writing. So it's like, so we all sort of put it under the aegis of this unity that was called Sonic Youth, and I really like that forum.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but at the same time, I would also get kind of crazy. Like it's like, wait a minute, I just brought in like 20 song structures, and it's just like, or hey, I just did all. But I couldn't think that way because it was all about being in this place that I was bringing it to. And if I wanted to, I could bring it somewhere else, such as like in my own solo realm or whatever. So I kind of figured that out soon enough. But I think now it's like I'm not really interested in repeating that experience because that's something I got into really young with everybody else in the group altogether. Me, Lee, and Kim
you don't bargain. I guess you kind of grow with that.
Yeah, and it's something that we sort of experienced together as we progressed through, like, more than 2 decades.
Right.
And so for me to get involved with another group again and like, let's do that. It's like, I don't really want to do that. I actually want my name on the record. I kind of want to take all the songwriting credit. I'm not going to write your parts for you, but I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. You're in my group and I'm employing you because I know you're going to come up with some killer part.
Right. Yeah, totally. It works so well like that too.
I remember seeing interviews with Bowie where like some musicians like, I wrote that song, man, but I didn't get credit. It's like, well, he employed you to do what you did. He's going to take credit for it. It's his name on the record. That's how it works. It's like if he didn't do that, that song would not exist. If it did, nobody's ever going to hear it. But that's just how that works. That kind of relationship. And so, I mean, I don't play it so hard like that, but I that's kind of like I don't really need to sort of create a band where we're all going to kind of go in there and brainstorm together like what this piece of music is going to be like. It's going to be me saying like, this is what I want it to be like. I'm going to have this guy mix it, and it's my decision. And I feel like
that's liberating too for everybody else.
Yeah, it is a little liberating, But I mean,
I'm in the same situation.
I mean, that's kind of how you guys are, right?
That's how I was going to say. Yeah, LCD is totally like that. It's like we all contribute in the studio and stuff. But James is doing most everything, and then we just kind of, I'll play some bass, do some bass riffs, over it or whatever, and then he kind of chooses which ones he wants to use.
Right.
And it's cool for me because also it's like I know that I'm working for James's vision in a way, and it gives me a sort of a focus, to know like, because when you're kind of just going with like, I don't know what I'm doing, it's like, it's easier for me if I think like, oh, what would James want to do, here, like how would I play this like James? And so it's actually kind of cool. I really like that relationship,
I ain't seen anyone for days. I still have yet to leave the bed. It's impossible feeling safe with it now. I'm impossible getting used to it now.
Do you make techno mixtapes?
I don't so much. I make mixtapes a lot, but I make more. I'm actually really into contemporary, like African and
cool,
Brazilian weirdo crazy stuff. And even like some just whatever stuff that doesn't have typical rhythm sort of stuff going on, like where there's not such a emphasis on 2 and 4 and.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of like where I gravitate to these days, with like what kind of the mixes that I make and stuff. But I also make, I guess, kind of arty or techno kind of stuff or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I did like a straight techno thing. Sometimes I'll put, I like to kind of, if I make a mix, because I DJ too, yeah, for sure. And I try to do, if I put techno in, I try to put it like more organic, like percussion stuff on top and stuff like that.
Do you like Mantronics? I only say that because we were like listening to like Mantronics mixtape. I think Soul Jazz did it. It was like Mantronics' favorite jams.
Oh, okay. I love Mantronics.
When he worked at Downtown Records, and so that was really fascinating to hear it.
Oh, dude, that's some of that Mantronic stuff is super good. Yeah,
super good, and then his selections on this CD were really curious because it went from like Yellow to to Tila Rock, and then it would go to his stuff.
I guess that's what I like. I love that. I guess I feel like when I DJ, I try to kind of go into that tradition of DJing, which is just super eclectic. But yeah, I kind of try to keep that. So I will put a techno track in for sure, but I'll try to mix it up with whatever other kind of stuff too. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a total like started in New York kind of phenomenon.
Do you like DJing?
It's kind of one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I like it too, and I never get asked.
Yeah, me neither.
But when I do get asked, I was just like, I'm never available. But I just,
Yeah, me neither, man.
And it's just like, I'm gone. But it's just like, I really like doing it. And it's just like, it's just great when people come up and go like, what is this?
Yeah. And it's like I love digging. I love to dig. So
right.
So it's also like a good outlet.
Do you DJ? Do you do it all laptop style, or do you?
No,
you do vinyl?
I use USB sticks usually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't like bringing my computer much into like club situations.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
I don't know.
So you do USB stick into like what?
The CDJ, like CDJs, usually these days in the club have a USB port,
So you bang it into there, and then you're able to sort of like.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's not much different, I guess, than a computer, but somehow just not having the screen in the laptop.
Yeah.
Works better for me. When people are using laptops, I think they just, you can just beat sync super easily. You can probably do that with CDJ. I don't know how to do that. I just like the whole physicality of mixing the records, and it's like using an analog piece of gear versus a computer. Totally, it's same.
When I DJ, I always ask for 2 turntables, and I only bring 7 inches. So it's like that's like I'm trying to sort of like have that be my thing.
That's cool, man. You can really rock that.
It was really great talking to you, man.
Really fucking beautiful, man. I can't even believe how nice that was. I hope we meet in person at some point.
Yeah, man. Well, if you guys are in the same town as I am, I'll come see you for sure, like in London or in New York or in Berlin or whatever.
If we're on the same festivals or whatever, I'll come, I'll come say hi.
That'd be cool.
If you enjoyed today's talk, head over to Stitcher and iTunes and subscribe. While you're there, rate and review. Every time you do, it helps someone else find the podcast. Next talk, Tunde Adebimpe, he of TV on the Radio, with Grammy-winning producer Ian Brennan. I'm Elia Einhorn. Behind the boards, we have our engineer and co-producer Mark Yoshizumi. Till next time.